to the final mandatory unit, which is Unit 4. And Unit 4 is on the topic of the wider professional practice in the education and training sector. So during Unit 4, you are going to understand and apply the concept of professionalism and dual professionalism so that we could become the professionals we aspire to become within the field of education and training. You are also going to be, we are going to be talking about professional values, what influences our practice, and also we are going to be looking at our individual responsibilities in our role of training or teaching practitioner. This unit will give you the opportunity to understand some of the social, political, and economic factors that influence the creation of policy, and also we're going to look at some of the policies that are shaping how we develop curriculum and how we deliver our facilitation as well, how we facilitate in a nutshell. So this unit is very much about learning about professionalism and some of the policies that shape what is expected of us as professionals within the field of education and training. Now let's have a look at what exactly we're going to be talking about as part of Unit 4. So first of all, I know you know probably what it means to be a professional, what professionalism is. But here we're going to look at the concept of professionalism within the field of education and training. So a standard definition of professionalism, which was taken from Britannica, that is, professionalism is the standards, practices or motivations associated with a certain profession. So we're also going to look at professional values. And when we talk about professional values, I would like you to think about the culture of the organization you currently work for. And perhaps even if you are still at university, maybe you haven't yet taken on a role which is a job, then perhaps think about some of the values that organizations do adopt when it comes to creating a professional environment. And many of those companies or organizations actually write about these values on their websites. So this module, we are going to be looking at, as I said, the concept of professionalism within your own subject area or the area you are looking into entering when it comes to your professional life as well. A very important concept here is the concept of dual professionalism, because as trainers and teachers, we are often seen as dual professionals. So what does it mean to be a dual professional or have a dual identity, for instance? That means that apart from being subject experts in our chosen area, for instance, if you are a teacher of maths, your subject area, your subject expert in the field of maths, but you also aren't just a subject area expert, you are a facilitator, you are a teacher who facilitates learning, and this is where all the soft skills come into play. So you are seen as a dual professional. Teachers and trainers are. So within the concept of dual professionalism, we're going to look into how we can improve our conduct and our performance as dual professionals. We're going to go into much more detail at the actual unit sessions when it comes to the concept of dual professionalism. As I mentioned when I was giving an overview of the purpose of this unit, which is Unit 4, I already mentioned that we're going to be looking at some of the key policies that shape our external environment, the environment within which we operate as training and teaching practitioners, And what are some of these policies and how they affect our facilitation methods, how they affect the way the organization that we're part of operates, and for the purpose of understanding the external context and the policies that shape the education and training sector and the practices within the education and training sector, we're going to look at pesto analysis. Some of you may already be familiar with pesto, but pesto is a really good framework that allows us to look at the various influences that could be shaping the way we our conduct, our, as I said, facilitation style, the policies and procedures adopted by our companies, our organizations, or by the schools where we teach if we're teachers. So we're going to look at some of the legal factors, the political scene, the economic scene as well, the social factors, the technological factors. As we all know, technology has been a massive tool, especially upon the beginning of the pandemic, that allowed many people to continue learning, to continue studying because of all those technological advancements that we've seen in the last couple of years, right? So we're going to look at all of these factors and how they apply in our own professional practice. Environmental as well. So think about the environment, think about the sustainability trend, think about all of the things that we are adopting as practitioners within those fields, and some of the policies and procedures that our own companies have implemented within the area of sustainability. For instance, many schools, many companies have something which is called green team, and we're going to go into much more detail during the actual unit, but I am sure that you're going to find the pesto framework and how we are going to look into how that applies to our own field of work quite interesting and also useful, because this piece of learning that we're going to cover here is actually really relevant, and it will carry practical implications into our day-to-day jobs as well as learning and development practitioners or teachers. So now we're going to also look at the key stakeholders. So during this unit, we are going to look at stakeholders, the concept of stakeholders, and we're going to talk about the various stakeholders and external bodies that impact education and training. So we're going to look at their impact. Let's start by looking at government. So on the screen you see just some of the stakeholders that we're going to be talking about. So for instance, governments, right? They are implementing new rules when it comes to the pandemic. So this is, an external body, a stakeholder that shapes the way we facilitate, whether we facilitate as teachers or trainers, whether we facilitate virtually, whether we facilitate face-to-face. That really depends on the government regulations that in the last couple of years, in the last year or so, has been changing because of the pandemic. We're also going to be looking at local authorities and suppliers, and these are some of the stakeholders that we often don't really think about as training and development or teaching practitioners, right? But I would like you to think about, for instance, you facilitating a session on a particular topic, you having ordered all the necessary resources, and there is a delay in the supply of those. So that is definitely going to have an impact on your on the delivery of your session. So these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about at the actual and the actual sessions that are part of Unit 4. Also, you may be working with trainers or teachers from outside organizations. They are external stakeholders. We're also going to be talking about the impact of parents as internal stakeholders. When it comes to our professional practice, there are multiple stakeholders that first of all, we should be aware of, and second of all, we should really be taking into consideration when we are preparing training and development or teaching sessions as well. Okay, so that is these are one of the well, these are some of the stakeholders we're going to be focusing on at the actual session. And of course, we cannot not talk about policies, guidelines, and codes of practice, because we must ensure as practitioners that our facilitation style, our training, our teaching sessions or lessons are fully compliant, not only with the organizational policies within which we operate, our internal operational environment, but also with the external legislation policies as well, and with the external environment. Send code of practice. This is just an example here about some of the regulation requirements that we're going to be looking at during the actual session. And that is, so this code of practice, sent code of practice, is an example of a code of practice that states how we should be treating learners with special needs. So this is just an example here. And we already spoke about the Equality Act 2010. We're going to speak about it again in the next couple of perhaps minutes further down the line today, because we have a whole unit on equality and diversity. But again, this is just an example of key policies and guidelines that as practitioners we must be aware of at all times in order for us to be compliant. Again, we're going to talk about internal guidelines, about the policies and procedures that are implemented by our own organizations. For instance, I would like you to think about some of the policies that those of you who are already working, that you may have signed upon joining your current employer. Very typical policy, kind of common policy here in the United Kingdom is an anti-harassment policy, or code of conduct or code of ethics. So all of these policies and guidelines will play a big role in how we design, how we deliver, and how we assess learning and development interventions and sessions, programs, and also how we teach, especially if we are teaching in the public sector, right? Then we must really ensure that we comply with all the regulations introduced by governments and legal bodies as well. Okay. So as part of this unit, we are also going to focus on quality assurance and quality improvement. So we're going to look into the concept of quality assurance, what that is, and also quality improvement. And for the purpose of this overview session, I have picked a definition here for you of quality assurance from the European Commission, and this is one of the policies that have been implemented across the members of the European Union, for instance. That is the definition here of what quality assurance is and what it involves. It involves the systematic review of educational provision to maintain and improve its quality, equity, and efficiency. It includes school self-evaluation, external evaluation, the evaluation of teachers. So when it comes to quality assurance, you as practitioners are also evaluated as well, also school leaders. So quality assurance is a very, very broad concept. And then we're also going to look into how we assess quality, how we assure quality in our own teaching practice, but also overall quality of the actual training programs or teaching lessons or sessions, and how quality could be improved continuously as well. So these are two concepts that we're going to be discussing in much more detail in Unit 4 as well. So I believe this gives you quite a good overview of Unit 4 and all the mandatory units actually that we've covered so far when it comes to this level, which is level 5, and what you're going to be learning. Again, this is just a very brief overview of the material and the content that is going to be covered as part of this level. Okay, so now we are going to move towards the optional unit.